Hello and welcome to the Sacral Circle, where we are healing sexual trauma collectively and lovingly. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and I'll be interviewing women from all walks of life who have had to face a sexual tragedy or abuse in one form or another and triumphed over their adversity. On every episode, a guest will deliver inspirational support, words of comfort, and empowering healing advice. They'll courageously share how their experiences impacted their lives and what led them to face and conquer the blockages that kept them from fully reconnecting to their inner power and divine feminine sacredness. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, The Sacral Circle. Just search The Sacred Stories on iTunes. To learn more about my coaching and healing services, visit JanieTerrazas.com. I want to thank our listeners for joining us today on the Sacral Circle, the self-love haven where we leave judgment at the door. And today I have a really lovely woman with me, Suzie Ramirez. I always want to call her Azucena because I just think her name is so beautiful, but she likes to go by Suzie. So Suzie came to me a few years ago. She was seeking some coaching, and there was probably about maybe a year or two, I'm not sure how long it was, before we reconnected. But this is a woman who has traveled the world. She has gone on all kinds of amazing healing retreats with individuals that are well known in the field of personal growth and spiritual awakening. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Louise Hay, the wonderful Wayne Dyer, who passed. And so not only that, but immersed herself in books and hands-on healing. And she has faced some sex trauma, mental, emotional abuse that really impacted how she viewed herself and her femininity and her sexuality. This is a woman who has dedicated, how many years has it been, Azucena, since you started this walk of knowing thyself and really healing and trying to transform and illuminate your heart, mind, body, and soul?
Well over 20 years.
Were you born here in the States, or were you born in another country?
Mexico City.
So born in Mexico City. I'm touching on that because we're going to touch a little bit on the cultural facet. The Latino culture deals with when it comes to what it means to be a woman and the expectations that they have. So thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate your time and your openness to sharing your story.
Yes, of course.
Now, I know as you started kind of going through this process of going into the deeper part of self, you started to see how some of these things that you've endured were impacting you in your work world, but also in your personal relationships with men.
Yeah, growing up in Mexico, most women, at least back in that age, in the 70s, you have to look perfect. Even growing up as a teenager or in your 20s, although I was already here in the United States, but growing up in Mexico up to age 13, I'm telling you, I had to always look perfect. That's ingrained in the Hispanic culture, and well, at least in the Mexican culture, ingrained that women have to look good, dress good, get lipstick, wear a dress, not jeans, not slacks, wear a dress or a skirt. And that went on through my college years when I was here in the United States, here at UTSA, San Antonio, Texas. And I remember my grandmother from Mexico visiting and me getting ready in the morning, getting ready to go to college, to UTSA, to the university. And I was just in jeans, a T-shirt, and heading out in a hurry, as usual. When you're in your early 20s, you're always in a hurry. And she said, change. Why are you wearing jeans to school? And get some lipstick on. You got no color in your face. I'm like, oh, I was just comfortable trying to get to my class on time. And that was her view, to change. You don't wear jeans. And you always put lipstick on and look good, even when I'm just going to the grocery store. So right. The image always has to be there to look good.
And do you feel like that was partially because of there's this like idea that the woman is sort of the ornament for the man?
Yes, because growing up, that's what I saw my parents view on TV. The woman is the ornament. The woman is the candy. She's the prize. So you have to look perfect. Some Mexican game shows to have a woman half naked or in bikini on a family show. On a family game show. That was very normal. That was normal for me to see. Growing up also in my early 20s, I was in the realm, ironically, of promotions, liquor promotions. So I was one of the girls that stood on the bar and gave out, got the attention of everyone, gave out and threw out the prices, gave out, and the life of the party, you know, pretty girls, dressed sexy, giving out free stuff. And then at the end, I came home with phone numbers or invitations or X or Y things. So I grew up with that, and I lived at home at that point, and my dad would tell me, oh, you look good. That looks great on you. That looks sexy. What father tells that to their daughter? No. Mm-hmm. He told me, no, that looks very good on you. In fact, let me take a picture. You look great. Most parents would say, that's too tight. Go back to your room and change. No, he understood what I was doing the promotions, that I had to look sexy, and he accentuated that and promoted that in me to dress like that and to be like that.
Mm. And I know that when you were younger, I don't know what age it was, but there was just like an inappropriate situation where your father basically made you feel really uncomfortable. It had something to do. I believe you were around 11 years old. Is that correct?
Yes. It was on a Sunday morning, some point in the fall, age 11. I can remember it clearly. Every Sunday morning, most children, they go to their parents' bedroom and you play or Sunday morning. Anyway, So I go there probably to ask about breakfast or something. And my dad was laying in there, and he asked me, oh, just come here and sit here. And he said, oh, just right here, lay next to me. My mom is on the same bed but facing the opposite side. So my mom is facing the right side. My dad's facing the left side towards the door. So my dad is spooning me. And he starts unbuttoning my pajamas and starts touching my growing, I was just 11, my growing breast. My body was changing. As he's doing this, he is telling my mom what a beautiful body I have. And my mom is just like half sleeps, like, yeah, she's beautiful. She's a very pretty girl. And he was touching me meanwhile and putting my butt against him. He never penetrated me. I don't remember, but what I do remember is being frozen. I just froze. I remember that very clearly. I froze, and I just let him do whatever because he's my father, right? And finally he let me go, or something happened, and he buttoned my things back up, and
take your time, babe.
And I left. Years later, probably 20 years later, the night before my college graduation, somehow we were all sitting together at the house, my brothers, my mom, and my dad. And I don't remember how this came up, but I mentioned it, and my mom denied it. She said, no, your dad would never do that to you. You're dreaming it. You're making it up. Don't say that. And my brothers was like, what are you doing? It's like, what are you saying? That's not possible. That's not right. And no one had my back. Nobody, not my mom. Because in my mom's world, my dad comes first, then her children. But my mom, took my dad's word. My dad also denied it. He totally denied it. And that same night, I also remember telling them, yes, remember when we used to watch TV? Another example is my dad used to open his legs and made me lay. The TV was in front of us. So he would open his legs and he would make me lay my head against his penis. So the back of my head would be right there against them. Or sometimes he would put a pillow, and then I would lay there. Of course, my face is facing the TV monitor as we are all watching it, but the back of my head was either touching his nuts or in a pillow that was touching his nuts. And I knew that was not right, but he would always tell me, oh, come in here, lay here. And I thought that was normal.
Wow.
So I would remember, I would give my brother that night before graduation, I would tell him, I bring up that example, he would remember, but they didn't think anything of it.
Wow.
The turning point was when my dad was starting to touch inappropriately my niece on a Thanksgiving, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, or touching my niece inappropriately, simply touching her lower back. As we were watching TV, he was touching her lower back with, just pulled out the T-shirt and was touching skin to skin the lower back. And, of course, Susie's radar comes up, and I'm like, ooh, what's going on? I can see, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I didn't know what to do. I got nervous, so all I did was go upstairs and tell my sister-in-law, and I said, call Zoe right now. Call her right now. And so she did. She just trusted me without a question. And I asked my sister-in-law, ask Zoe right now what my dad was doing to her. Let it come from her. And she did, and right then and there, she was able to hear from her mom that was not correct touching, to please go in her room and just kind of do something else or just don't go back downstairs. And then at that point is when I told my sister-in-law what had happened in the past with me, with my father. And she had already, as a female instinct, we all are born, we females are born with that instinct. So she already had noticed some not so straight, some awkward stuff with my father. And sure enough, it came up, brought a fight in with my brother and her, because my brother never told her. Why? Because my brother never relieved me. So this blew up in his face, because now he was able to see that I was not making it up. He apologized, relieved me, and said, I'm sorry, sister, I didn't believe you back then. I said, well, why would I be making it up? So that was mended. So from there on, my brothers saw me in a different light because they believed me. My mom to this day still doesn't believe me. To this very day, I'm making it up. He would never do anything like that.
And you know, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I mean, I know oftentimes it could be so shocking. So at 11, when you, in that moment, were you able to make the connection that you realized your mom did not have your back in that moment? When you said that your father was like kind of undressing you and touching you when you were laying in the bed with them, and your mom was just kind of like, yeah, she's really beautiful. In that moment, did you feel like you lost trust in your mom?
I think as an innocent child, I didn't know that was wrong. I thought because my dad is the authority and my dad knows best and he's the leader, what he's doing is probably the right thing. I didn't know any better. I just remember freezing. I remember that so clearly.
Yes.
I didn't know about her having my back or not. I just thought it was the right thing. It's like, oh, every girl probably goes through this. I'm just going to let it happen. It's probably normal. I didn't know.
Okay.
Because you look up to your parents. You're looking up to your parents, you know. So until later it kicks in that it's probably not right.
Yeah, and you don't realize it. And like in your case, you said it really wasn't until you got into your 20s, it sounds like, right?
So probably my late 20s or early 30s that I was like, enough, stop seeing me as an object. I am more than just a pretty arm candy or whatever.
When was it that you started to realize that maybe some of all of this was starting to impact you in your life and in your relationships?
In my late 30s, it was leading up in my late 30s, and then finally at I think it was when I was 40 or 41, I finally I kept on attracting guys that were just using me for looks or guys that were just the bad boy type of thing, the superficial guys. For a while, that's all I attracted. I would say for a good 5-7 years, that's all I attracted. Ooh, I can smell those out today to this day.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Because you become such a skilled person at the red flags. Like when you keep attracting a certain type of individual, I like to use the word template. Like, you know, we all have real fundamental templates and there's some variations, right? But there's some underlying things that help you start to recognize and discern individuals that are very much still broken within their own self. And right? And that's when you start to realize that you're starting to grow, when you no longer entertain those types of personalities, that you don't have to think bad about them, but you definitely don't have to get involved with them. And that's on a friendship level and or a romantic level. It's like you start to get wiser.
You know, right? Also what's very interesting, there's a book out there called The Little Black Book About the Big Red Flags. I don't remember the author, but it's a really cool, funny book. The Little Black Book About the Big Red Flags. And that one, man, I was just like was just eating it up. That was a really good book. But yeah, I was age 41 when I was super attracted to this guy. He was playing me. He was manipulating me, which is what my father is. My father to this day is a big manipulator, but he doesn't know better. So he grew up like that. You cannot expect. My parents did the best they could with what they had at that time.
Yeah, and with what they knew. Mm-hmm.
And with what they knew, exactly. My father, he doesn't think so, but there's so many red signs, loud and clear, that tells us that he was abused, sexually abused as a teenager. There's trauma there, deep trauma that he's had, and he's never addressed it. So I think that's where a lot of this bottles up. So going back to age 41, when I see this guy and I'm dating, we're going out, and he's manipulating me mentally more than anything. And, of course, we're getting intimate. He starts playing some major, very similar role as my father, doing certain things. It's funny. It's so interesting. It really is interesting how this guy came out of nowhere, and he was playing the same cards my father was. And I'm like, whoa, chill pill here. There's something going on here. And I called him out on his shit. I stopped that crap. I'm sorry for calling it.
No, it's okay.
Like that.
Right.
I stopped it, and I went to a healer, and in hopes, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Again, you go blindly thinking you're going to address one thing, and then the big kahuna comes out afterwards. And this particular healer she was divine. She was so good. She went deep. She regressed me and went deep and made me realize that at age 11 was not the first or the only time my dad looked at me or touched me that way. Mm-hmm. And that made me cry. She held me in the loving space, let it all out, healed it. But I cried very, very deep. I mean, that's one of the deepest cries in my life, in my entire life that I've had, because the cry of release came from a soul level. I was crying, wanting to let go, and I didn't know that I could let it go. And I cried, and I cried I felt the sighs, the deep sighs, when you go like, when you go like that. Okay, I kept on doing that deep sigh, emotional sigh, for 7 days later after the healing. I still kept on healing after 7 days. It was very deep. She opened up a can of worms, because from then on I made a covenant with myself. I also went to another healer weeks later, because I just wanted to get rid of it all. And this other healer helped me at the cellular level. And after that second clearing, that's when that's it. I didn't attract it. I chose, and I made a covenant. Weak woman in my life will no longer continue. This ends right here with me. No more weak woman that will allow themselves to be abused or manipulated by any male figure in their lives. And that was my covenant to myself and to my next generation on both sides. It's like, enough. And to my present generations, it's like, that's not going to happen, because my work is going to reflect on generations out. And that's what I believed. And so that's what happened. From there on out, I no longer attract assholes.
That is awesome.
Yeah, because I don't appeal to them, or they don't appeal to me. And if for some reason a little asshole mosquito tries to come in and buzz me out or bug me, I just swap them off, call them out, and they can't stand a strong, powerful woman. So there they go. They go out.
When you kind of came back into my life and kind of came in for some coaching and some restoration, but then we reconnected again as friends, because we're on such similar paths, and we are delivering different types of healing for each other and different types of encouragement and upliftment. So you are now so insightful that you almost started to overcorrect, right? Like you were like, you know what, nobody's going to take advantage of me. Nobody's going to see me as this. And you got real strong on your left brain, the left side of your brain, your warrior side, your independent side. You've been able to flex that. You've been able to flex that for quite some time now. So you almost started to become so comfortable in that space that you started to detach from your goddess and that open-heartedness. Your discernment almost went a little overboard. Now you're trying to sort of like balance and harmonize yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were so looked at this prized possession, and then you went over to your masculine side and really got your strength from that. But then you're basically wanting to play with that softer side of self. You're wanting to reconnect with your sensuality and your sexuality and want to take ownership of that. But you also know that involves a little bit of vulnerability. And just recently you've been going through some healing of really starting to identify with the idea that a man can have your back, that you can trust. And that's ultimately what you're still in the process of working through, correct?
Yes. A recent retreat opened me up to that window that I had shut down, and not only shut down but also totally sealed and double sealed and hidden. I wasn't even thinking about man or dating. I wasn't giving myself the chance. I forgot about giving myself a chance the last few years to date because you're so left-brain. Like you said, you're so independent, you're so strong, I'm not going to let you in, that I just stayed in that trance for years. And I'm like, enough, until I went to this retreat. It opened me up, and I reached out, and I allowed to be opened up. And there's nothing sexual about this. Meaning I allowed to be held by a man in a non-sexual, just androgynous, how do you pronounce that word? Androgynous, yes.
It's like a neutral, like this.
Exactly. It was a neutral embrace of light and love and healing. It just happened to be by a man, but it could have been a woman, but I allowed myself to be in that space, which I had not allowed myself in a while. And that was a huge step for me already. And I let it continue because I needed that for a few weeks after that. And it opened up opportunities. It opened up like another aspect of my brain per se. It's like, oh yeah, I can date. Oh yeah, I can go out, and yes, why not? And when this particular individual told me, I have your back, when the words that came out at that moment really hit me strong and made me open and believe in my heart that a man can have my back. There is a man out there that can have your back. There is existence. Not that particular one, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But a man in general can. So that was instrumental. I don't know if this person will ever realize the magnitude and impact that had on me, and forever be grateful, because that's all I can feel, gratefulness for this individual. And it opened up other things, and I'm ready to date in a healthy female way. And I know I still need to let go of the control of the masculine. It will come with practice, and me still praying dear to God, having my solitude, meditative time to allow this goddess, this vulnerability to keep on growing.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way to state it. And I loved earlier when you said, no more weak woman. And
because this has been generational. This has been happening on both sides of the family, not only my mom's side of the family, but also my father's side of the family. It's been going on their family for female generations, 5 or 7 generations. That's what one of the healers told me.
Yeah, and I really do. I believe in this, because trauma, it continues to get carried over from one family to the next generation, and it does need to be healed, and it does start somewhere. So the fact that you took that initiative, and also I like that you were able to express to the listeners that those cries that we have sometimes when we go to seek someone who can assist us, right, as we go through this transition and heal from the inside out, We really have to let ourselves go there. Sometimes it's a movement of the body, it's a cry, it's a yell, it's a something, it's guttural, but you can feel when it's coming from deep inside. And no matter how painful it may be, being able to give gratitude, you've been giving so much gratitude for all of this. Even the uncomfortable parts, you've maintained an attitude of gratitude because you recognize it really is the only way out of the dark, you know? How has this also transformed your faith? Has your faith always sort of been instilled, or is that something also that has grown over time?
It has deepened over time. This last retreat I attended deepened it even more delicious, even more just gorgeously delicious. In one of my meditations, after I came out of the trance of the meditation, a prayer came to me, and that is just very special to my heart. That when I say that prayer, it connects me. That's like my medium to go back to my particular spot with God.
Yeah. And do you mind sharing it with us, or is that something that you would prefer to keep just to yourself?
I have it. I do have it. Yeah, I love to. Yeah, it's very special. It's the prayer that came to me was, I'm open, ready, willing, and receiving. Allow me, God, to listen to your whispers to my heart from the highest, most divine. In my most mundane, everyday task, I welcome your sweetest, most divine voice and your presence. Oh, my dear God. Oh, how I love you. I love you, my God. I love my God in me. I love me. I accept me. I'm love.
It's just so perfectly pure.
The whispers to my heart from the highest, most divine. That's what I just wanna have and be open to in every moment of my days.
You know, I really want to commend you too for going and saying something when you witnessed that with your father. And you know, it's unfortunate that your mom and him, at least for now, are still sort of in that denial phase, which is really normal. And I think it's great that you have a higher understanding of where they are and why they are showing up that way for now, but that it's not impeding you from being able to like really move past and forgiving. Speaking of forgiving, where are you on the forgiving process with your father, being that he hasn't been able to accept the truth?
I have forgiven him years ago, because once you understand that little child was also abused himself, how can you not love him too for what he went through, for his pains and trials?
Right.
And why would I condemn him for also being a victim?
That's a deep compassion. This is forgiveness on a whole nother level. It's unconditional love. That power. That's the power of like real, true, unconditional love.
That's deep. Ooh, yeah. That's deep. Really, it's not an overnight. It's not even. It's been taking several healing sessions.
And time.
Several.
Yes. And it's great that you brought that up. You know, patience is a big part of the process of healing, and especially when it comes to this type of thing, you know. And like you said, you know, there's still parts of you that don't quite remember everything, but even what you have recognized, you've come to terms with it. And when I brought up, you know, you saying something to your sister-in-law, and not remaining silent. And that's the biggest thing, is we must not remain silent. If we don't know how to bring something up, if we see something and we want to address it and we're concerned about how it's going to ripple within the family, you know, you can always seek out guidance on how to handle that. I'm sure now that you've been through it and stuff, you've probably come across more information around some of that so that you know what to do and what to say.
Yes, indeed. And it took, I want to say, 4 to 5 healing sessions, and it's not easy. And every session was deeper, and it just helps. And remaining open to the process, and just remaining open. Keep your heart open and working. That's all we can do.
And you know, we all, those that are on the show here and that are part of this, and our listeners, you know, our intention is to not just survive, but to thrive, And we really, truly, when we decide to walk the path of illumination, we are taking back our mind, our hearts, our bodies, our soul. We're all the parts of us that felt cracked, fragmented, broken. We are sealing and healing. And I think when we do this, it's really powerful because that's what the world needs more of right now in general. And so we just do our part to reconcile the self-hate or the lack of self-love that we have for self, and then we go and be that in the world. And that's what you're doing. You're doing your best to be the best version of you. And I know that you're inspiring a lot of people. And you were talking about the retreats that you've been to. Was there anything else in particular that's been important?
Carving a space in your day to just be you and just love you. That has helped me. Having good friends that are like-minded and have self-respect and self-love, that's already, that's half of the battle right there. I've done plant medicine as well. Didn't believe in it until I was in it, and whoa, it's amazing, all the healing that can happen from being open to what comes your way, to what's showing up in your life. Someone shows up and invites you to this. It's like, wait, why are you doing this? And you just be open and try new things that are, and the end result is going to be to elevate you, illuminate you, and open you up. If you think hatha yoga or hot yoga or Kundalini yoga also is very powerful. Goodness, yeah.
Yes, yeah. These are all. As I've been going through my transformation, my healing process, there's so many different things. Sound bowl healing, acupuncture, talk therapy. All of it. It's like
Reiki
yoga,
sessions, amazing
yoga,
Reiki sessions with Miss Janie.
Oh, yeah. So we just had, you're right. So we just had a Reiki session not too long ago, and you could share a little bit about that experience for you and what you were able to walk away with.
Pretty powerful. It was pretty deep, and I stayed at the lucid level so I could answer any questions or whatever, but I was at the lucid state. I was halfway gone, but not entirely, and I just felt things moving for sure, especially through the heart and throat chakra. Yeah, you were a beautiful instrument to help move along those stuck, dry areas or whatever it is that I have, cobweb areas that I had in my heart chakra. Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, and I always try to tell people there's the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, and all of these things, like the body sometimes itself, like even as stuff was shifting and moving around you, you could kind of feel your jaw tightening up or your hands tightening up. And it was really, and that can feel really uncomfortable, but you just breathe through it and it sort of finds its way back out of the body, and suddenly you just feel that restorative state. Your body's like let go of that discomfort, that angst or whatever it was that was trapped in there can now let go. It's like you can surrender it. Yes. Well, it's
surrendering.
Really,
yes. Very, very deep.
Surrendering. Well, you said so many beautiful things on here. Sometimes I'll go through and find what's that line, that quote. So I'm going to have to see which one really stands out to know what to title this beautiful episode. We touched on so many different things. I'm sure we could keep going on and on, but this is a good time for us to sort of wrap up. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we leave? You shared such a beautiful prayer already, the mantra that came to you, and I think it would be wise for people to rewind the show and write that down and look at that daily, because the power of word and the consistency of it can really do amazing wonders. Don't you agree?
Yes, and that was a transformation I had from my 20s into the woman that I am today in my 40s, because in my 20s I saw myself as the arm candy, and if you didn't melt before me, because I was I was manipulating. I was playing that vicious game as well back then. I was manipulating men as well, because you're in that cycle, you're in that circle. So learning to purify your thoughts, your food, your music, the choices of movies you make, the choices of thoughts, all that purification. We're very sensitive beings. We have 5 senses, but really we have 6. To this day, I've never watched a film with violence. I don't. I walked out of many movies that they don't feel good, that stress me out. So purify your senses in all ways that come in. Just images, those images that have no place in my mind. So my last thought is just allow your God to play the whispers to your heart.
And listen. I love that. Thank you so much. Again, you guys can search her on Facebook at Azucena Ramirez. Her name will be right there on the link for the podcast. And thank you again for being a part of the Sacral Circle Sisterhood, and for being a beacon of light in a world that is so much in need of that. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to our beautiful listeners for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the Sacred Stories podcast on iTunes, where you'll find other impactful, inspiring shows. Connect with me via our social media pages. You'll find us at the Sacral Circle. Your shares and likes are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. If you have any questions about my coaching and healing services, visit my website at JanieTerrazas.com. As we say goodbye, always remember to know your worth and continue to love and value yourself wholeheartedly. Peace be with you.